The 4th of July was not about slavery freedom. Europe was under a monarchy, which means that whatever the king says, that's what the people his citizens do. Much like Queen Elizabeth ruling in England. Well, before Queen Elizabeth, there was King George III. Some of his citizens, known as the French, didn't like these harsh rules and taxes they had to pay under the king. Great Britain, or the British, practiced Catholicism. You have to understand that the world was evil, so humans needed a way to escape the guilt of their sin, which is why Catholicism was practiced. Jesus did not die for the whole world's sin, he only died for his people's sins, but the Europeans, needing a way to escape their guilt of their sins, they took on the practice of Jesus from the 12 tribes and made it their own. Okay. The Europeans know that Jesus did not die for their sins, but they teach the whole world that Christ died for everyone's sins. But if you read in the Bible, he does not say that. So the enemy, or the Europeans, or the devil, being upset by that, they come as a lion trying to get as many of God's people, true people of the 12 tribes, to believe in a false image of Christ, because you're not supposed to worship no other God but God himself, who is black, by the way. So they're going to give you a white image for you to worship and confess your sins to. And if you read in Revelation about the false prophet, who God talks about, who says he forgives men's sins, he says he has to go to the lake of fire. So who is the one who's saying they can forgive sins other than Christ himself? Is the Pope. So having one person with this amount of power, you can only imagine how carried away a king would get with this. Just look how y'all are in America. Y'all can do whatever y'all want and not get in trouble for it. But under the Great Britain's rule is what the king said, okay? So the French, who were part of the European countries, wanted to be separate from the British, to be able to come over here and do however they wanted to do it, other than hearing what the king say do and do it. So they sought out to find freedom in the 13 colonies. You have to understand that Great Britain ruled most of the lands, even parts of the North Americas. So those portions that Great Britain already owned, the French wanted those 13 colonies for themselves to bring about their own government and way of ruling their citizens. Or George Washington was the leader of the Revolutionary War to dominate or to gain control over those 13 colonies, which is why you read about the Revolutionary War in school. It was not to free slaves, it was just to be independent from Great Britain. So every time y'all saying, "Oh, I'm celebrating July 4th because it gave us independence," no, it had nothing to do with slaves. Just know that if the French did not win this war, the so-called free will that make up the matrix in which its citizens live in would not be able to have come into fruition. Okay, so y'all feeling like, "Oh, I can do whatever I want as long as I don't break the law," that sense of entitlement is what independence gave. Because instead of believing what the king says, you can believe in what you want to believe in, as long as it doesn't go against the law of your land. The matrix. Catholicism is basically a sense of belief that you can confess your sins to someone and you will be forgiven. You have to understand the world is very evil. God had to flood it with water. So people will feel guilty about the bad things that they would do, and it'll cause them to hurt themselves. So a form of religion was brought about to be able to prevent humans from feeling this low. So that's why Catholicism was being practiced throughout the world, to keep humans from going insane about the bad stuff that they were doing. Okay, so now that it's brought over into America, that's why if you're a Christian, you feel like you can do whatever you want, and it won't nothing happen to you. it's okay. I got free will. And this is what God does not stand for. You have to follow his commandments.